to Brew Day, and you're joining me as I mash in. Today I'm going to be brewing, or attempting to brew at least, a lager, and I'm going to be using Lalman's new Nova Lager yeast, which I have purchased from the malt miller. It's a very simple grain bill, which I have based roughly on Dude Brew's Corona lager that he brewed during lockdown. The basic recipe: 3.3 kilograms of Europills malt, 200 grams of flaked torrefied maize or corn, and 200 grams of torrefied rice. Later on then I will be hopping with Hallertau Mittelfrüh, which is slightly different from what Dude did in his own video there. I have a few water additions to do, which I never tell you about because they're different for everybody. And then I'm doing a slightly different mash profile, I guess. Watched a couple of videos about maximising the chances of getting a fully clear beer, and I came across this video that said if you do a 15-minute, I think it's a protein rest at 56 degrees, that helps things. So that's what I'm doing. I'm doing 15 minutes at 56 degrees centigrade for a protein rest, or as I've written in Brewfather, protein things. And then ramp up to 65 degrees for 30 minutes for the main mash. Then a further 15 minutes at 71 degrees, and then finally mash out at 76 degrees for 10 minutes. Just doing a 30-minute boil then overall, and as I say, 40 grams of Hallertau Mittelfrüh at 15 minutes and 60 grams of Hallertau Mittelfrüh at 5 minutes. So let's see how that works for me. So that's the end of the protracted mash. I can see already that the volume of liquid isn't going down very quick. I just knew this was going to happen. I just knew that was going to happen with the corn in the mash bill, the grain bill. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat up as this drains, and I'm going to give it a bit of a squeeze to try and help. I know someone is going to write in the comments, should have used rice hulls, and I know I should have used rice hulls, but I didn't. So what you going to do? This is mad. This is why you should never plan to do two things at once. Call it. In here we have our lager, which is approaching the boil. In fact, I might have to cut for some hot break footage. And in here we have Citra Mosaic Pale Ale, which is getting ready to be kegged. But all of a sudden the airlock's going nuts. I know fermentation's over, it's just obviously the yeast being unsettled. But so as we drain the kettle and the fermenter, it's basically turned out to be quite a disappointing brew day. My original gravity is as low as 1025, 1.025. It's meant to be 1043, something like that. Very disappointing. Very disappointing. I thought I did have a wee sort of moment of panic during the mash where I thought these grains don't look crushed. But I checked my order slip from the malt miller. It says crushed on it, so I'm going to take that word for it. The mash was recirculated right throughout the mash process. Step mash this time, which I didn't want to do. I've been advised a certain thing to try and get a more clear beer, which is what I want because it's a lager. So just pretty much feeling a wee bit, I'm not going to say down, I don't feel down, but just a wee bit fed up with this shit. Positive news, however, whilst the boil was going on, I kegged my Citra Mosaic, which is tasting fine, so we just want to get a bit of carbonation onto that and get it going. It's in the only keg that I have that doesn't have a floating dip tube, so I'm not going to bother with any gelatin or anything like that. I'm sort of in two minds whether to use the Nova Lager yeast here now or not. Probably still will. I mean, I think putting the new numbers into Brewfather, I think we're going to get somewhere in the region of 3.8%, which I don't know. So I've done a quick internet search. I've decided 3.8% ABV is not enough. Use that outside my door. I've done a quick internet search and possible solutions. I've decided 3.8% isn't enough. So we have two 500 kilogram, oh yes, 500 kilograms, that's how strong I am. 500 grams of maltodextrin, 2 bags of each, or 2 bags in total. I'm told this will increase my original gravity by 0.9. Each, so that'll be 1.8, so that'll bring me up to 140, which is close enough. Really, the brew's doing this, we're in cold side now, so everything needs to be sterile. So it actually turned out that one of those bags was maltodextrin and the other bag was actually labelled as bottling sugar, which I believe to be, in this case, dextrose. So 500 grams will contribute towards the alcohol content in the beer, and the other 500 grams will just add a bit of body, which isn't really what I was looking from this light lager, but you know what, it was a bit of a disaster brew day, so I'm not going to judge this beer based on this brew anyway. So, although you can see me just about in the corner there actually measuring the gravity after I've added the two types of sugar, I don't actually ever say it to camera, but from memory it was just slightly over 1040. Of course, some of that will never be fermented out because I'm an idiot. Sweet. So here we go. Alman's Nova Lager. Pitching at 17.5 degrees. The fermentation chamber is set to 16 degrees to start with anyway. Bosh! As far as brew days goes, that was one. Even adding the things at the end to try and bump it up, ended up in a disaster. Maltodextrin doesn't ferment, Jacko, you flipping idiot. It's just as well because one of the bags that I added wasn't maltodextrin, it was just bottling sugar, dextrose. So I added another 400 grams of just plain white sugar. This is a fucking disaster now, man. I don't even know what percentage it's meant to be, where the gravity's meant to be or anything. 500 grams of maltodextrin is going to make it a bit thicker body. It's meant to be particularly thin bodied beer. It's also going to add a bit of head retention, which isn't a bad thing, I guess, but certainly not even close to what I wanted to do with that. So yeah, it is what it is, guys. We'll continue through. We'll let Nova Lager do its thing, and we will get a beer at the end of it. It may be 5%, it may be 2%, who knows. So there's the final product, the disaster that is. Not gonna give this beer a name. It was an absolute disaster. As you've seen the brew day footage, you're fully aware of how much a disaster it was. I absolutely panicked at the end of the brew day and just started pouring sugar in, maltose, dextrose, sucrose, glucose, fructose, other oses. So I don't know. Some of the sugar obviously was not fermentable. I put some bottling sugar in. I think I even put some just, what do you call it, granulated sugar in. So all in all, what I'm about to do is not a fair test of this beer. But have a look at that there. It's very clear. It's not really coming through in the camera there just because of the ring light. Maybe back here it's a little bit better. I don't know, can you see my eye? There's a decent level of carbonation of the beer, and there's a tight white head. You can see already, just in the space of my wee rant there, it's dropped off quite a bit, but it's bright white. The beer itself, what's that, a pale straw colour. From memory, from looking at it, it looks paler than a Budweiser, which is some achievement, I must admit. Similar colour actually, because there is corn in it, or there's meant to be corn in it. So it is a similar weight. Do Budweiser use corn? No, they use rice, don't they? So this is more like a, remember the Bud Light ads where the knights were walking around with the corn syrup? Yeah, doesn't matter. So yeah, I'm quite happy with the appearance of the beer. I'm really shocked that it's cleared out the way it has because of the amount of shit sugar that I've put into it. Carbonation streaming up the glass, as I've said. This isn't a fair test of this beer, obviously, because disaster brew day, disaster me panicking with the sugars, but I may as well give you closure on the video, so that's what we're going to do. There's not a whole lot on the nose. There's almost like a fresh fruit flavour to it, I'm getting like a hint of a pineapple, which is really weird. I didn't get this earlier when I was pre-testing this. There's definitely a sugary sweetness there. I'm getting pineapple at the moment, which, considering the hops that are in it, it probably shouldn't be getting, so I don't know where it's coming from. My imagination maybe. So a ton of unfermented sugars went into this, so I'd imagine it's going to be sort of thicker bodied. It was meant to be like thin bodied, but I'm assuming now that it's going to be slightly thicker bodied. You already know that I've already had a taste, so it's not as thick bodied as you would imagine. It is thicker than I would want it to be, based on the style of beer that I wanted. So it is a thicker body than that. There's a sweetness to it, which I don't want. Jacko, you added, what, 1.5 kilos of sugar at the end of the brew day. Of course it's going to be sweet, but there is I know sweet and dry are the opposite ends of the scale, but there is like a dry and finish almost to it. And then there is like you don't get the wash. This is a new word I've learned. You don't get the wash at the end of it, which you get with really good lagers. You get like a dry and finish and then like a stickiness in around your mouth. And where on some lagers the dry and finish and the wash drags you in for more, the stickiness drags you in for more because you want to wash that out of your mouth, so the only way to do it is have more beer. It's not unpleasant. It's not an unpleasant mouthfeel. I'm not describing it very well, sticky, but it's not unpleasant. It's quite... It's quite sessionable. Now, here's the other thing. It could be 3.5%, it could be 35%, well, it could be 35%, but you know what I mean. It could be anywhere between 3.5% and probably about 6 or 7%. Based on the taste of it, which isn't obviously a very good guide, I'm thinking probably around 3.5 to 4%. Why am I thinking, why I'm not telling you? Because I didn't take a gravity reading after I bucked all that sugar into it, which is stupid, so any final gravity won't tell me the full story. Moving on to taste then. As I go down the glass a wee bit, I'm getting some of that sort of corn, that like, what do you call those things? Fajitas? Tortillas. I'm getting a little bit of tortilla, but whilst I think this should be very grain forward and it should be tortilla, it should be corn, it should be that sort of thing. There is a sweetness there and I can't get away from it. So on the taste then, straight away I'm getting some zesty lime, lemon, that sort of thing going on, which I'm quite okay about because it was meant to be, if you remember, a Corona style beer, Cornita style beer. So I'm quite happy that there is that lime and there is that lemon there. You can't get away from the sweetness. That's the underlying thing. You cannot get away from the sweetness, which is wrong. You know, it's not what this beer is meant to be about. I really wanted this to be a very dry beer. I wanted it to smack you in the face with the corn flavour, a bit of lime, corn flavour, refreshing, dry and finish, drag you back in for more. And unfortunately, it is sweet. It is. You couldn't call this a crisp beer at all. But, and there's a big capital B, but it's nice. It's a nice beer. Despite everything, it's actually a nice beer. And you'll have seen the footage where I kegged it and I sampled it then. I was a bit cocky on the camera, but I was 50-50 whether I was going to buck it out. About a week ago, I gave my mate a sample of it. It hadn't cleared out at that stage either, and it was sticky. Like, I'm saying it's sticky now, but it was sticky. It was like tar, it was like syrup. It had this really weird aftertaste, which it doesn't have now. What else was there back then? It wasn't a pleasant beer, and I honestly thought at that point I was going to chuck it out, and the only reason I didn't was because it was too busy. So I left it. I left it on really high pressure as well. So the first thing that I poured this morning was head to here. Getting off track. I poured it this morning, having left it for another week, just slightly more than a week actually. Saturday to what day is today? Tuesday. So 7, 8, 9, 10 days, and it has turned, it has transformed, it has recovered, and it is a decent beer. Part of this video, part of this beer project was, it was a beer for a party. I think the lads will drink this. It's inoffensive, it's a lager-ish. It's, you know, it's low value, low ABV. Lads will drink this to the football for Champions League next week, no dramas. B, part of it was the test Nova Lager. This is not a test of Nova Lager. I fucked it up. So it's not a fair test. I will redo the test, probably the same recipe. Alternatively, I might do Brew with Me Vienna from the malt miller, but substitute in Nova Lager instead of the Kvike yeast. I can't remember what it's called. I've got Ultra in my head, but that's not right. And the third thing was, what was the third test in this beer? Party beer, Nova Lager beer, and was it just simply a lager? So if it's just simply a lager, it's probably too sweet, but you know what? It's probably the closest to a lager I've ever got. And I think that I would do it again. I would definitely do this recipe again. I'd like to do it with the exact same recipe. A, with everything going perfectly, and B, I'll never be able to recreate this, but B, I'd like to have done that recipe and just added the fermentable sugar rather than the non-fermentable sugar to see how it would have turned out. I think it would have been very dry. But hey, we live and learn, don't we? All in all, I can't give you an assessment of Nova Lager. I can't give you an assessment of this recipe really. I've just wasted your time. I'm really sorry about that, guys. But it is a nice beer. We're at the end of May and we're going into June and I've no beers planned. So I'm going to write a list of a couple of things I want to do. I'm going to redo, I've said it previously, I'm going to redo an Irish Red. Definitely going to redo my full Ulster, full Irish clone, because that's one of my favourite beers that I've made. And I want to redo this properly. And then I have a couple of recipe packs downstairs, so that's maybe 6 beers to get on with. And then what's going to happen is I'm going to watch your videos, looking at you, brew a bit, Rick, Big Banana, apartment brewer. You'll not see this, but I see you. Actually, he released one today that I'm going to go and watch. It's a 2-day pineapple IPA, which sounds good. Again, rambling. So I have a few beers in my mind, but I know what's going to happen. I'm going to watch BrewTube. I'm going to get sucked into what you're doing, and I'm going to start copying you guys again. Look at that, the head's completely died off now. Looks like, I'm not going to say what it looks like. It doesn't taste like that. Yeah, and as it's heated up, much more of that lemony, limey, citrusy, but it's very specific lemon and lime citrus. It's not no orange, no grapefruit, no other citrus fruits that I don't know what they're called. As it's warmed up, that stickiness is coming back, the not nice stickiness. Yeah, that's the thing with this channel, guys. If I make a bad beer, I'll still do the video, I'll still stick it out. But all that remains is this little bit at the bottom. It doesn't look very appealing, but